Hey listeners, it's Alex, your host of EOA, Entrepreneurs of Asia, the show where we talk to founders, investors, and entrepreneurs, shaping and impacting the startup scene in Asia. Today's episode was recorded back in December 2020. We get to sit down with Yorlin Ng, the COO of Momentum Works. In the previous episode, we chatted with Jiangan Li, the CEO of Momentum Works, where we cover in depth what they do, which is venture building, consulting, corporate innovation, and media. If you want to learn more about Momentum Works, listen to the previous episode, episode 16. What's unique in listening to both of these episodes is that these founders are actually a married couple bucking the old adage of not being able to work together with a loved one. In this episode, we start off with an intellectual exercise of whether or not Yorlin should actually be the CEO of Momentum Works instead. She later goes on to explain why covering women in entrepreneurship and leadership are important topics for her, and the pros and cons of working in corporates or startups. Towards the end of the episode, we discuss what actually is the role of the COO, Chief Operating Officer. This episode might resonate with women or anyone interested in diversity, an audience looking for possible changes in their journey, whether they're looking to join corporate or startup, either way, and maybe a younger audience who might be interested in hearing about Yorlin's earlier experiences and how she transitioned from corporate to startup. Lastly, this may also benefit anyone who's thinking about how to structure the relationship between their CEO or COO. Feel free to skip around to the different chapters and sections below with your podcast platform. Let's dive right in. Hello, Yorlin. Welcome to the show. How are you?
I'm good. How are you, Alex?
Good. So let's just dive right in. Let's start with a question. Should you be the CEO of Momentum Works?
Should I be the CEO of Momentum Works? What would I do?
What would I don't know. That's up to you.
Wow, so early in the day. Should I be the CEO of Momentum Works? Never thought of it actually, Alex. Because for me, right, I've always wanted to do something exciting, but I always didn't have that kind of like, what do you call that? This kind of like vision that a founder has. But I think if I were the CEO of Momentum Works, I think I would be looking for somebody from a Rocket Internet background to help me run it.
Oh, very interesting. So there's quite a few things to pick at there.
Yes.
Why do you pause and hesitate to assume? I mean, let's also make clear first, like founder versus CEO can be the same thing, but it could also be very different.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So that's first off. And then secondly, what's making you pause to assume a top role?
Top role. I kind of like how you're actually jumping into this discussion. So maybe to answer your question, I think a few things that I just want to maybe just share. I've always been really comfortable being in a supporting role. It does not mean that I cannot be a leader, but I think you can be a leader, but in a really strong supporting role. But I've always wanted to follow somebody with a very strong vision that I could help execute. So execute something for. So I think what I've observed in the industry, in the startup space, the last few years is that I see lots of people with vision. And that excites me, and I want to bring across my operational experience and try to help them drive things home. So in a way, that's where I come from.
It almost sounds like you're saying though that you don't have anything that currently is inspiring you or a vision that you yourself want to manifest, and that's why you wouldn't want to be CEO per se.
Yeah, I think in a way I'm quite agnostic. So I think, and I think it's nothing wrong with that, because I think it's just like, if I were to ask you, would you want to be the president of the United States?
Yes.
Okay. So that's cool.
Just joking, but that's a fanciful, that will happen. But I don't know, Donald Trump lowered the bar so much, so why not, right?
Yes, but I think many people I know, and I think that they would love to be in a sales role or a marketing role, but nobody really wants to do that CEO. Not many people wants to do the CEO role. But does not mean that this person does not have the kind of like inspiration or dreams. It's just from a different angle.
Okay, that's fair. Oh, that's a very good question, though. as a CEO, how much vision and inspiration do you need in order to be a CEO? I don't know. I even feel like there are some very effective CEOs, like Fortune 500 companies.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a well-oiled machine already built. I mean, of course, yeah, I mean, like there has to be a certain direction and idea, but to what degree is that absolutely needed to be? Or maybe you're, maybe if you assume the role, it unlocks different things you would never think about because you weren't in that position, that will help form and shape new ideas of, I don't know, visions that you would have to take the company to a different direction, maybe.
That's true. And I think the CEO, it can come in many forms and shape. Is it a peacetime CEO or is it a wartime CEO? Right. So where are you in your business? Where do you want to go? And I also know that because my experience in the corporate world has actually given me a chance to work with quite a number of different CEOs in Hong Kong, in Singapore, in many companies in Singapore per se. And I've observed some very visionary CEOs and some very stable CEOs, and of course some very peaceful and some CEOs that will win the UN Peace Prize, for example. So I think maybe because I've seen so many CEOs, I do observe that being a CEO is no fun. The fun, because you are in a way and it's a challenging job, right? You need to drive the vision. You need to you're actually the mascot for the company, right? And you need to also be fair, and you need to sometimes you need to find ways to drive your company through, and sometimes what you may need to do may not be what you like, right? Like, for example, meeting people you don't want to meet, or going for meetings that you don't want to go, etc., etc. So that's why I've always enjoyed the role as more of a supporting function rather than the head in a way. So
in what ways do you think that mindset and mentality is informing you to disqualify you for that? Whereas maybe if you actually did it, you would really enjoy it.
I could enjoy it. I think it's really not the mindset per se, more like a choice at this juncture. But of course, if I were, push comes to shove, if I were pushed to the CEO role, then I think things would be different, right? So yeah. And I think maybe to just put things in perspective, it's if you were to ask me, would I want to do it? The answer would be no. But if I had to do it, would I do it? The answer is yes. If I had to keep the company alive, right?
This is a very interesting topic because I remember when I was back in Zalora, Vietnam. Right, so I was responsible for starting the operations from scratch, and very important. Like operations probably has one of the biggest departments, so I had to hire all the direct reports for all the different functions, from production to warehouse to inbound, outbound, inventory to retouching to customer service, building that from scratch. Right, and I very remember when I was leaving Zalora, I had asked the head of CS. She was a mother. Right, so she had two kids, a very challenging position as a mother because one of her child had disability, and she sounds like you. She sounded very hesitant to take a leading role for some reason, but I just kept pushing her, and eventually she hesitantly took it, but she kind of rose to the occasion. She became an amazing leader of leading all of the operations. Excuse me.
Yeah.
And then now she's been being a country head as basically acting CEO for many different kind of ventures from there forward. So so maybe I don't know, wouldn't discount yourself.
And I think it's actually quite interesting for you to say, because I think if you look at it, most people that can do it usually try to shy away from it, because maybe they know that it's going to be a heavy burden, etc., and maybe etc. But I think overall, I think if we had to, I think we would rise to the occasion. So
yeah, I think so. I think what people are afraid of is the uncertainty. But in the process, in the journey, if you are open-minded and allow yourself to grow and allow yourself to make mistakes and be authentic, people often discover things about themselves they don't realize. And I think what's really important is two weeks ago, we had the CEO of Momentum Works on. So let's be very clear. Okay. This is not about sabotage. This is Yorlin is the wife of the CEO. So, and I am good friends with the CEO. This is in no way a means of sabotaging or anything. It's just more of an intellectual exercise I think more of a personal introspection kind of thing for you maybe to think about. And the reason why I kind of thought about this, because I think Jangan the CEO of Momentum Works, Jangan, your husband, he has really big ambitions. And I see momentum works in its current form only as a part of the puzzle piece to a grander vision. Right?
Yeah.
And him, by relinquishing some control and taking a higher level step, maybe like a chairman level, would allow you to also further grow and allow things to run of the current business streams and all the projects you guys have going on right now, and allow him to also dive into other things he's more interested in, freeing up time to do like more venture building and more focus like that. So it was just something I had thought about and kind of wondering what you thought about that, you know.
That's a very interesting perspective. I would think that yes, Jangan, actually, the CEO of Momentum Works, does have actually big visions and big dreams. And I think if we were to move on to bigger things, I would be more than happy to take up the role of to fill his space if needed, in a way. Yeah.
Look at that. But we just sold to you the idea of you being CEO, and just a second ago you weren't even thinking of it.
Exactly.
It's done, guys. It's done, guys.
That's how people work, right? So I think that's how the human mind works. But and in my sense that if me becoming the CEO could help move things along, then yeah, that would be great. But of course, I want it to be on a meritocracy basis, meaning that I would want I would want the company to actually review suitable candidates and make the best choices beforehand.
That's interesting. So that's a topic I want to talk about later. But before we get to that, let's talk about let's agree or disagree. This interview is important to highlight more women in tech and entrepreneurship and women in leading positions.
Yes, definitely, yes.
Okay, so tell me about that then. Why?
Well, why? I think this is actually a topic that's quite close to my heart, and actually I think well, okay, so I'm Malaysian, and when I was growing up, I didn't really get
fake Malaysian.
No, I'm a real Malaysian. I have a Malaysian passport. Okay.
But you're in Singapore for how many years now?
Yes. Okay. But I'm a hardcore, true-blooded Malaysian, and I think when you're growing up, right, because I think the government in Malaysia has done a good job to empower women. You don't really think much about it. It was only when in Malaysia, yes. For people in my situation, in my bubble, right? I don't speak for all women. So, and I think when I was growing up, I was quite greatly influenced by my grandmother. My grandmother actually came from China to Malaysia. She married my grandfather, didn't speak English, but she managed to actually get into the politics of Malaysia. And she was one of the first female politicians for the MCA, which is the Malaysian Chinese Association.
Oh, wait. Say that again. She was one of the first women politicians for the MCA.
In the MCA, yeah. And I think she was the one who actually pushed for one man, one wife rule in Malaysia.
Oh, wow. Okay, wait. There's so much to unpack here. Wait, so let's give some context to the audience. So, in the context of the time period, the politics. I mean, this is your grandmother, right?
My grandmother, yeah. My real grandmother.
What she had to face, and then even pushing that idea of one man, one woman. Wait, so there's so much going on. Wait, so what is the context? What time period is this?
I think it was the 90s, 50s. I would presume. I think Malaysia.
So this is when Malaysia was just formed.
Maybe around 1950s, 1960s. And I think she decided to, at that time she was a Chinese. And I think that time Malaysia was just formed maybe about 5-10 years after independence from 1957. And I think she was a teacher. She was actually a university graduate. But I think she realized that a lot of the women in Malaysia were actually being unfairly treated by the men folks. Right. Okay.
Being unfairly treated from what context? Social, religious, government, just the patriarchy? What are we talking about?
I think patriarchy, social.
Okay.
And I think she joined the government. She joined the MCA, which was actually quite promising then. I can't speak for it now.
I mean, it's one of the founding political parties of Malaysia. It's quite pivotal in how it formed the politics of what it is today, and all the coalitions. Like if you read the history of Malaysia, this is like before the race riots or
that I wouldn't know. I think these are
around this time period though.
Yeah, around this time period.
Yeah, right.
And I think Malaysia, being an independent country, did not have much foundations, didn't have much rules, and I think she decided to join the MCA, representing the Chinese women. Okay. and
the Malaysian Chinese
Malaysian
Association.
Chinese Association representing Malaysian Chinese. And then I think she pushed through some rules reform to make it legally binding for one Chinese man to only have one wife.
Okay, so this is for Chinese, and actually, no, this is quite common. So, like, all my friends in Malaysia, their great grandparents or grandparents, they even one I know currently today has 4 wives still.
Yeah. Having So I think that was actually, she was my inspiration, because growing up, you just listen to this and actually the thing is that my grandfather was also a politician as well. So,
oh wow!
Yeah, he was also with the MCA.
You come from lineage.
I come from but then the thing is that actually the secret thing is that my grandmother actually had a more senior rank than my grandfather in the in the politics in MCA.
Do you know the story? Like, how did she convince all these dudes in the patriarchy to, I'm a woman, let me in, I'm going to push my agenda and policy, and I'm going to listen to you?
No, I think it ran in silo, because I think the women's and the men were, separate. But I was young then. I didn't know what questions to ask. But what was very interesting were the stories that she told us when we were growing up, saying that she would chuckle to us and said that, she knew that she made a bit more than my granddad, but she kept it to herself, because I think as a man in the family, you still need to, make sure that he's the man of the house. But deep down, I think she knew what she could do, and I think I think she would always complain that her only drawback was that she didn't speak English. Yeah, but she still she didn't speak any English at all.
Grandmother, so she spoke Mandarin and a dialect and probably Malay.
And Malay, yeah, and she managed to get through. So, and she managed to, I was very proud of her, because she would show us the Sultan giving her her medal. She has a photo of that still at home.
That's cool.
Yeah, it's very cool. And I think she and my granddad had a photo together of both of them with their, they call it pangkats in Malaysia, the medal. Okay. And all throughout it all, I think she was always in a more senior position than my granddad. But at home, she never let it, rise above my granddad, right? So, and so I think maybe unconsciously, I think what it told me was that we can do great things, but we don't really need to really be out there, right? Right? So that's such a fascinating lesson. Like, in this day and age, can a woman produce more than a man, and a man still feel whole? I think my granddad and my grandma had a really great relationship. And I think, I believe maybe it may have gotten to my granddad maybe in early days, but at the end of the, I think be it in a relationship, be it at work, you just need to choose your battles, right?
Yeah.
Right. So, and I think the key thing is that what is the key goal? And I think nobody is telling me that, oh, you can't just go out there and shout that you can be CEO and you can do great stuff. But I just feel like you don't need to be in that position to get to do the work that you need to do. Right.
Well, I guess what you're telling me, it's like kind of like House of Cards. You're going to be the man behind the curtain, pull the strings, and all the power is. That's also possible.
That's also possible, yeah. Because you don't need to have that title to get the work done. Anybody, I mean, this is what I learned from just observing my family. You can actually get a lot more done if you can be in a comfortable position of your choosing. And you have the resources at your hand. If you were put in the spotlight, maybe your hands are tied. Maybe.
Yeah, very, very subtle, but very powerful. Is that why you answered the way you answered for the first question? Is that tied together?
Maybe. I wouldn't. I mean,
maybe. Huh?
Maybe. Yeah. Maybe. I wouldn't know. This is all subconscious, right? So
it could be. Right. It could be very much.
And I think for me, right, the reason why I joined the startup world is because I wanted to find some meaning. I wanted to find a purpose. I wanted to also, I didn't join the startup to bring more women into tech. I joined the startup because I wanted to experience it first. And I wanted to find more passion. Okay. And it was only along the way that I realized that I saw a lot more young people, especially young ladies, who maybe were in my shoes, maybe a few years ago, not sure of themselves, not confident, or maybe they were just comfortable where they were to do what they had to do to get ahead, right? So I think my role, what I have actually crafted up for myself is that I just want to give the people, be it men or women, the opportunity to just have a space to showcase what they can do and just to prove to themselves.
Can you expand upon that more, where you said women who are young and unsure, what would they need to do to get ahead? You said they need to do what they don't know what they need to do, or something like that, or what are you trying to what are you trying to say that the younger women in that position, what is it they're not doing to help progress themselves personally and for the career as well?
I think it's not just young women. I think in today's time and age, is young women, men and women, young men and women from different backgrounds. Is that I think maybe based on their academic certification, they're not good enough. Maybe based on their background, they have not been given a chance to prove themselves. So here at Momentum Works, I don't give anybody an easy time. I think I push everybody really hard. But I think I do give everybody equal chance to try and to showcase what they can do, and to also do what I was given a chance by Jangan to really prove that I can be a COO. When I first came to Momentum Works, I had no confidence whatsoever that I could do a startup, because I come from a very professional corporate background, and I did tell Jangan, why don't you let me in as an intern? Let me try for a few months, and if I do well, why don't you give me a proper place in your company? I never asked to be the COO. I never asked for it.
I was going to ask that question, like how much nepotism was involved, but it sounds like you were willing to put the work in and prove yourself. So that's
to be very honest, I did play the wife's card. This is to get in.
Well,
to get in.
I mean, I think that's fair. You got to use every advantage you have, but at the same time, you can't creating or you're destroying value, right?
Exactly. So, yeah. No,
but I think that's a fair way to get in, though.
I just play my wife's card to say that, and to say that you can play the wife's card, you can play the friend's card, you can play the sister's card, you can play the brother's card. If you have that card, play it, because life is not 100% fair, right? Yeah. But once you're in,
the most important thing.
Go on.
But the most important thing then is like, how do you control the cultural aspect of the company, of the employees? You're comfortable of saying that you're going to use your advantage, and I think that's kind of fair for anyone, even if they're rich or they have power or whatever, right? But the thing is, people will have a moral high ground over you, to lord it over you in a certain situation if they're not mature enough to really understand the delineation, or sometimes maybe it is relevant where they say, oh, you're the wife.
Yes.
So how do you handle that from a cultural aspect then?
I don't tell anybody that I'm the wife.
Not everyone knows it though. Come on. I mean, let's be realistic.
Yeah. Not many people. Only close friends, and only when people have gotten into the company, and after a while, then I think it comes out naturally. Otherwise, I don't purposely say that I'm the wife. But I do hold myself to a higher moral high ground, because I have to. Because in particular, because I am the wife of the CEO. So I don't want to be in this position because I'm the wife of the CEO. And that's why when you ask me if I were the CEO of Momentum, what would I do? I hesitated, because maybe I don't want to be the CEO of Momentum. Maybe I want to be the CEO of some other company, which has no linkage to my husband.
But then it sounds like there's some lingering baggage. Has anyone used this against you before?
No, nobody. But it's just your moral.
Is it because they're afraid of you? Maybe.
Maybe, but I wouldn't know. This one you can. I wouldn't know. But I think that I do pride myself in the sense that there shouldn't be any baggage that people can use against me. Or because the thing is that I pride myself on my work, and that's why I said I only used it a few times. One of them was to get into the startup world, and then after that you need to prove yourself, right? Because it would be very unfair, not just to me, but also to my husband, if he were known to be giving out favors to his friends, right? And why would he do that? This is his company, this is his baby, right? So I do have to work harder to prove that I deserve to be here, and I think after 3 years, I believe that I have proven my worth, and this is what I want to give to younger people, the chance to prove their worth.
Yeah. Yeah. So I mean, like from an outsider perspective, I'd have to agree. You've definitely grown into the role. But I would urge you to question your hesitation. Then, if a person should have no baggage, no fear, and you've done everything right, then you shouldn't have hesitated to answer that question. Right. Dig a little deeper. Maybe there's something there that's still lingering that you don't know subconsciously.
Yeah.
So let's put on your thinking cap for of being a woman in the corporate world and being in the startup world. What are the experiences that are unique to you as a woman in these spaces, and what can you share?
What can I share?
Between both worlds and being a woman.
And being a woman. In the corporate world, I was there for 10 years and I loved it because I think I was with a few companies, the MES, AXA Hong Kong, HSBC Singapore. I think the corporate world has actually evolved a lot, and in terms of people's culture, and I was respected. I was given the opportunity to prove myself, and I was rewarded accordingly, right? I think about 50 to 60% of people in the corporate world are actually women as well. So you do get to meet lots of women leaders and women mentors. I think there was one time where I was a management associate in Hong Kong, where 7 out of 9 of my bosses were women. So I have been.
Oh wow!
Yes, and strong women as well. Strong, powerful women, and very smart ladies as well. The CEO was a man. Okay, so so again, this kind of like past history comes up, and you realize that, okay, it's okay. I see what's happening. Okay, I may not want to be the CEO with this, but anyway. So the thing is that back in Singapore, HSBC Singapore, same story. Inspirational leaders, women with families. You see ladies who are pregnant working until their last day of labor.
Sounds like someone I know at home here. Who would do that?
Okay, and being respected by colleagues, right? And it was good. It was a very good place. Then I decided to give a startup a try. Okay, but before that, I think just to backtrack a bit, and it was all the way up to middle management. Senior management is a different ball game, right? So this is just my experience in junior and middle management. And then I think in senior management, I think it could be the same story as a startup, where most of the leaders are men, right? And
so still very much a bro culture.
Still a very bro culture. And but I think in the startup world, I think the first year or so, especially when people knew that I was the CEO's wife, I was mansplained so often. Often.
Give me one example. Give me the worst example you could think of. What stands out?
The worst example. I think the worst example was somebody that had joined us. I won't name the position. I won't name the name. A senior position, right? And then I was pointing out to him that he had made some very questionable errors. Or judgment in Excel. And then he went off to, which was actually impacting the strategy of the company. And he went off to mansplain me, to tell me that, come on, Yorlin, you can't really nitpick over little things when it is, and he was saying that I should have the judgment to make certain mistakes here and there, and you're not giving me the respect that I need as a CXO. I won't name the name. And I was just shocked. This would never happen in a corporate world where I would tell you facts that this is wrong. Can you explain this to me? Nicely, by the way, very nicely. And then I get told back as a little kid that I'm nitpicking. And then I don't know what I'm doing, and I should respect your judgment as a CXO. So,
okay.
Yeah.
So where's the line between mansplaining and constructive actual feedback?
I think mansplaining is not feedback to begin with. Mansplaining is somebody just talking down to you to tell you things without actually asking or asking for feedback to know whether or not is that a question you don't know, or what is the issue. That mansplaining is just telling you, just like I'm telling you, Alex, how you should be running this podcast.
But is this in a context that where gender is relevant, or are we taking a broader definition of?
Unfortunately, I think my experience so far has always been with men. I do have female colleagues and female peers. They actually do take time to, like you, find out, what is the issue? What's going on? Is there something? This is just general respect. Don't assume, ask, and then and treat people with just respect, right?
Yeah, because what I understand is it would have to be rooted in a subconscious or conscious belief that, and me as maybe it's not, the person doesn't realize it, but as a man, they feel the need to explain something to you because you might be inferior due to your gender, right? Whether they realize it or not. And they're trying to explain things without, the context or the questioning to be dismissive, right? So I'm kind of just wondering, could you dissect between what percentage is your mentality where you're being defensive, that it might be that case, and maybe sometimes it actually might be relevant, or maybe it's a mix where it's both, right? So could you actually see the difference where there might be some relevant points, but he's still doing the mansplaining?
I think my experience is that, because I can't give, I think it's not like so often that it becomes like I can actually start, noting down the statistics. Yeah. But I think it's actually most people that I see, they try it once or twice. They do it especially when they know that I'm the wife of the CEO. That's why I make it so actually being the wife of a CEO is actually is a discrimination, actually, because
so there are cases people using it against you, but more in a subconscious way, probably.
So that's another reason why it is in my benefit not to tell people and try to prove myself. But I think, and that is why I think sometimes I actually hold myself and other people to a higher standard. And I think after the first mansplaining incident between any one person, I think they get a scolding, or they get quite a harsh rebuke, and I think then they tone down, because I think this could be the way that people work in. Yeah.
Well, I'm not gonna mansplain your leadership choices and style.
Okay.
But I would. Well, I always give people a chance to think about another possible way, right? So this is not me trying to explain one thing or another. If you feel a strong rebuke is in the best interest for that person, and the right response and the timing and for the culture and for your leadership style, okay, I won't question that. But I would say maybe try owning it. I don't know. Who cares if you're the wife CEO? Why let it be an issue where you need to hide it? I would just own it as a fact. And if people can't deal with it, that it's something that you're open and authentic about. And if you feel it comes up because of that, I would say, if this is the issue, let's put it aside, because this is not the case. And I would just own it. I feel people these days, like another example I would use is like, a lot of wealthy people get into startups and they're trying to have this image of a poor founder, but they're clearly not. Like privileges, they're reeking of privilege. Yeah. I don't know. Just own the fact that you're privileged. You have advantage. And I would respect you more.
Let me set things straight. I own it. Okay, I'm very proud to be the wife. The thing is that, but I think at work, I don't publicize it. I don't deny it. Right.
Yeah, you shouldn't lord it.
But if somebody asks me, I would say yes, it is. But I don't bring it out on purpose to say that. Yeah.
Okay.
So don't get me wrong. I do own it. I'm not. Yeah.
It's a delicate balance for you.
And I think it's the same. So let's say, for example, because I think the thing is that people are prejudiced by nature, especially people who are new.
Yeah,
right?
Of course.
And you want people to see you for who you are and not who you are related to. I'm not saying that I'm hiding it, but I'm just saying that I can also be this wife. I can also be my own person. And I choose, and I'm choosing in certain situation to be my own person. Right, without the strings. The strings are there. I just don't want to show. I don't want to showcase to the world that I do not like holding my husband's hands in public, because as much as I love him, I really do. As much as
it's professional. Yeah, it's just being professional.
Exactly, it's just being professional. Just like let's say in my previous my last project, I was good friend with the CEO. But that does not mean that I make a show and tell of it, saying that, hey, we're really good buddies and I've known him for so many years. You don't do that, right? Okay, let's say he's okay at this project. I mean, I'm working with about 100 other people. I put on a professional front. I don't tell people I know him for a very long time unless I'm asked, but I do use it to my advantage when I need to. Right. It's the same thing, right?
Yeah, no, I mean, that definitely makes sense.
Yeah.
And, I think what's really important of what a lot of people in startup and tech, what they don't talk about is the complexities of dealing with identity and how those issues inform how you behave and your leadership style, right? You as a woman, you as a wife, you as a leader, me as a minority coming from America, being even more of a minority coming to Asia. I'm never literally accepted anywhere, even though I look and feel the same.
Yeah.
Right. So it's identity is something I think people don't bring up, and how those really affect how you are as a leader and what that actually impacts and how that could be fed into culture building, leadership, everything else. Right. So that's a good topic we covered. Anything else you want to add before we close this topic of women and tech and corporate world? And
I think the final thing about women in tech and leadership is that I think at the end of the day, just be yourself, just be true to yourself, just as I am, right? And I think just as you are, Alex, because I've known you for a while, I think after a while there are many types of leaders, and there's no like one size fit all. Right. And there's also no one ideal like cookie cutter image of what a leader should look like, be it right. So I think your experiences and your gut feel, your gut sense would always be what drives you. And I think that's why you're in the startup space. Right. So never question yourself. This is why I always tell myself, I never question myself. I may, in the sense like, do I have the capability? It's just that it's more like how do you use your capability to achieve things? So it's more like the how rather than to get things done.
Well, it's like, while this topic is near and dear to your heart because it's a part of your identity, it's not what you lead with, and it's not what necessarily defines you completely. Which ties back to your answer earlier about the anecdote of your grandmother and your answer to the first question. It's not necessarily. It's just you need to be you, and while it is part of you, accept that and work with it.
Yes, exactly. Right? Totally, exactly.
Interesting. Trying to balance all that. That's a challenge. It could weigh on your psyche, and you may not realize it. So I think it's good to talk about. Let's move to the next topic. Yes. Anything interesting from school in the UK? Because I also studied there, and I found out we are both alumni of the London School of Economics.
Oh, okay. That's cool.
Yeah, well, I mean, you more so. I just did a general course program, but they still consider you alumni. They take credit for anyone who becomes successful, right? So
that's what schools do, yeah. Okay. So, I mean, to set I think my school, right, I think it has to start from my college. So, I did my college in Malaysia, in KL. I'm sure I actually got it.
It was still around?
It's still around. I think it's still around. I think it's still around.
I'm joking. Yorlin is a little bit older. So the reason why I care about asking, because I know back then things were different in the UK. So I'm curious, and also in Malaysia. So I'm curious to hear what the experience was like.
Yes. I think, and I actually first went to Wales for 3 years. It was before I went to London. So I think that was actually a very nice transition, because actually why I went to Wales was because I actually I was supposed to study chemical engineering. That's why I went to Swansea. It's a small town where where Catherine Zeta-Jones is from. Yeah.
Oh, is it? What?
Yeah.
So random.
It is. She's cool. And I think over there I decided that I don't want to do chemistry, and I actually changed to actuarial science. So same as Seek. Seek also did actuarial science as well.
Sikho, yeah. Episode 12.
Episode 12, yes. And I think I loved my time in Wales, because that's when you actually your first time that you're away from your family, and that's where you also identify yourself as a person, right? Yeah. And I didn't study really hard. But I was Asian, so I think it was. Nice. But I was Asian, so it was easy to actually get past it. I really experimented with life there. It was cool, and I had very interesting experiences there in terms of the people, in terms of my friends, in terms of the relationships I built there, etc., and in terms of teachers as well. Yeah. Then
you can't say. Start with that without giving us an interesting life story then, right? It sounds like you did something crazy.
Next episode maybe. So I was younger then, yeah. Then I think I decided that I think the ambitions kicked in, and I realized that I don't want to become, same as Sikh, I don't want to just jump into the actuarial profession. I just thought it was very dry. So I decided to give London a try. So I went to so I went to LSE. I make it sound like it's so easy. I went to LSE.
Is it a transfer?
No. It was a master. I went.
The master's.
I got in. I got in as a master. I think most people when they're young. I mean for people in my cohort, we usually don't have enough self-confidence about ourselves. So you're always thinking, am I good enough? Am I going to make it? This and that. And then miraculously, you use the word miraculously, even though you deserve it, you get in, right? And I think London was actually a very different experience, where I think that's when I realized that, oh wow, this is what society is like. Fast. It's fast. It's actually very materialistic, and it's also very competitive. And people respect you more if you have money and if you dress well. Yeah, in a way.
It's a big city thing, I guess. And you're coming from. Well, you grew up in Seremban?
Seremban, yes, yeah.
So that's about an hour outside of Kuala Lumpur.
Yes.
I guess you could say it's fair to say it's small town.
Small town, still is, yeah.
Somewhat country girlish, I guess, and you go to Wales.
Yeah, I know. It's a nice bubble, right? It's a nice transition, like what I said. Yeah.
And then London must have been shocking.
I think London was not as much shocking as a realization like, oh, okay. So this is what you need to be in order to survive in a big city. And then you make a choice. Do I want to be in a big city, or do I want to be a country in the countryside in a way? And then I decided I wanted to be in a big city. Yeah.
So that experience helped shape, which I guess that that really sets you up for your future choices, I guess, because later on you jumped back straight to Singapore instead of Malaysia, then Hong Kong, right? So I guess that must have been part of the experience.
It was, yeah.
What was the zeitgeist back then for students in the UK? Did everyone want to be bankers? Did everyone what was everyone trying to do, or what was the mentality? What was the feeling of the time?
Okay, so I'm going to reveal. I think this will reveal a bit of my age. That was in 2005, when I graduated, 2005. So some of you may have been born. Some of you were still, in school. So I'm not.
It's okay. Yeah. You looks like you're 20 still.
Thank you. So at that time, everybody wanted to become investment bankers, join investment bankers, consultants, corporate consultants, or you wanted to join a big banks or join an investment house. These were the only four choices that you wanted to have. It's still the same, because I think as long as it's Asian, as long as you're around Asian people, fresh graduates, even today, I think there's always this element of not making sure you don't actually disappoint your parents, making sure you give a positive ROI on your investment that they have actually, given to you for school. So I think for the first few years, or your first first job or second job, young Asian people would go for these career choices.
And what would you recommend now to kids these days?
I would still, you may be disappointed in my answer, but I would tell you, you should still go for these kind of big corporations first before you decide to jump into a startup.
Oh man, I would disagree with that, but
I think in my 3 years here at Momentum Works, I've seen young people joining, and I've seen young people leaving, right? And I've actually had the benefit of working in a corporate. What I observe is that, as you know, a startup is actually very messy, it's very ambiguous, and there's actually no structure. There's very little structure, especially for the smaller startups, right? And it's actually very agile. Somebody with no training on how to process this information will find it very hard to thrive in a startup. Sometimes having 1 or 2 years structured experience in a corporate, a big corporate that can actually train you up, tell you what's right, what's wrong, puts you in a very good position to do whatever you want to do in the future, be it in a corporate or a startup.
Interesting. Yeah, I mean, I would say it comes down to personality. Startups are not for everyone. And I think if you're in a position where uncertainty really scares you and paralyzes you and you don't thrive, a different kind of environment might make sense. And there are in between still. You could join a more well-funded, larger startup. Right. Yeah. You could join. I mean, I wouldn't say it's black or white. So I could see what you're saying, but at the same time, the caveat is you might also pick up some things that from corporate that might not be very suited to startup world, if you have that background, when people find it hard to adjust, there's a risk aversion, too much processes when it's necessary, maybe taking too little risk when it's necessary, or maybe. So I mean, like, I think there's trade-offs. I think
there's trade-offs.
There's some good things.
But I think the key thing is that if after the training, you need to unlearn some of the things that you mentioned, Alex, and be able to learn new things. Yeah. So yeah.
I mean, that was one of Barry Diller, very famous entrepreneur from the U.S. Media empire and a bunch of internet companies. His greatest teaching I learned from him, listening to his episodes on podcasts, was learning to unlearn.
Learning to unlearn, yes.
Every time he started something new, he just had to unlearn everything to relearn.
Yeah, exactly.
In order to be successful. So that's a massively important skill to keep in mind if you want to join the startup world. And I found that very profound.
It is. Yeah.
And it's basically what you're saying. You can't just take everything. There are certain foundations you have probably, but you have to also unlearn some things to be successful. So I think that's the caveat, I guess, if you want to do that path. Yeah, but I'm always in the camp of, if you want to learn to ride a bike, you don't study aerodynamics and engineering, you just ride the bike.
I know.
But that's, again, I'm more biased. I have that background of just diving into things and trying to figure it out and somehow coming on top sometimes. Right. So
I think most people love that. It's just that some people can't deal with it. And I've seen so many people
they flounder.
And you don't want to be in a situation where you're floundering and your boss will tell you, Alex, I'm very sorry, I think I need to go. It's not a good place to be. So you might as well.
It's a failure on both sides. One is, when you're young, it's hard to know yourself. You don't have enough experience and challenges to figure out through choices who you are. On the flip side is, if the boss is setting you up for failure, man, that's completely on the leadership side, the management side, and both have to meet in the middle to kind of make these things work.
That's true. Yeah.
So I mean, it's a combination. It takes two to tango, and I think both sides have to own up to that and understand the contributions to that, any issues that come up. Hopefully, to find a win-win situation. Sometimes it's splitting up. Sometimes it's finding the right role and path for you. Right?
On that note, I'm not sure whether you know that my first 2 years was with the government, the monetary
MAS.
Yes. And
Monetary Authority of Singapore.
And I think that was when very interesting experience, very, very challenging. And I think after 2 years, like, it's similar to what you said, I realized that this is actually not for me. And but I was very grateful to actually go through the 2 years of incredibly structured experience to figure out.
Well, this is the Singapore government. Do you have any idea what it's like in other countries' governments, like Malaysian government? Is with Singapore? I feel somehow more efficient in certain ways. Of course, I'm sure there's a bureaucracy still in red tape. It's big, right? But I'm sure they managed to run Singapore fairly well for the past few decades, right? Yeah. And is that your take and your experience there? Like, it's at least pretty efficient, or what is it like working in the government for Singapore? First, to know.
Oh, they take in the smartest of the smartest people there. It's like the creme de la creme.
Okay, so that's one thing they do well.
They do very well there, but not everybody can thrive in the regulatory world, because you need to have a certain mindset that you need to see long term. You need to assess the risks, right?
Before we continue, what is the MAS, Monetary Authority of Singapore? What do they do?
They govern. So they govern the financial institutions, the banks, the insurance. They set finance policies. They also push out the innovation in the financial sector, etc. Anything relating to financial related services, per se.
Is it the same as like the Ministry of Finance? Or?
It's different. I think Ministry of Finance controls the money. MES is actually more like a pseudo government organization, a bit like the Hong Kong MA, a bit like the OJK in Indonesia, a bit like etc. So I think the 2 years that I spent in the MES, I disagree with you, Alex, because I feel that just like if I were to just jump straight into a startup at the tender age of 22. Yes, 22.
That's what I did. That's exactly what I did.
I think I would flounder, because I'm not. It's just like when we were discussing before this started, right? Is it a natural instinct, or is it a habit? How do you form it, right? Yeah. So for you, I think it's a nature, right? For Jungan, it's nature. Yeah. For me, it's nurture. So for me, the 2 years at MES was actually a nurturing, but a bit painful nurturing experience, where I realized that, oh wow, so these are the things you need to consider to run a country. One policy line in one policy can actually take months and months of debate just to get it through?
I mean, like part of it is politics and bureaucracy, but at the same time, I think the butterfly effects of a government making a decision actually affects actual lives. Like it could destroy things. So I mean, I think. And I mean, I think that's a fair point. Like, I think that's where I failed as a leader too many times, where I could see the potential and talent. I know the path, like if it's nurtured correctly, but the problem is the nature of a startup. You do have to throw people in the deep end, and then you set them up for failure. Whereas like, if you took a more structured approach and assuming at the ventures at the right time where they could afford that, you could have brought out more talent in a better kind of more productive way. So yeah, I think it's recognizing the fuller picture of that person, and it really helps if that person also has a better understanding of themselves.
That's true.
If not, you're kind of making judgment calls as a leader for them, and it's a lot of experimentation that you might get right or wrong.
That's true. So at the instant of my time at MES, I had a mentor actually who came up to me and said, "Yorlin, just because you're not doing well at the MES does not mean that you can't flourish in other places."
Oh, so you weren't doing well.
I hate it. It shows. And okay, I'm just being candid since this is a startup, right? And
That's fine.
And I think that was the most insightful advice that I got from her. Soon after, I actually tendered, and I found a place in Hong Kong. I found AXA. I joined AXA Hong Kong. AXA Hong Kong. And then I saw a whole different world. Then I realized that, oh wow, I'm doing very well here. I did very well there.
Interesting.
And it's like. It's like my skills at MES, I had to unlearn a lot of them, but there were some foundations that I took with me that actually helped me get through it.
Okay, let's discuss that. What did you keep and what did you unlearn?
I think what I kept was what I unlearned was actually the overarching analysis, the amount of documentation, the prim and properness. But I think what stayed was actually the fact that you still need to have an image to upkeep. You have to have that. MES actually trains you up to be the role model for society. And that image, when you go out, right, you're prim and you're proper, and you're always trustworthy, and you're always that was the key thing that I kept.
So that's like kind of some type of social signaling,
yes.
right? In that world, it makes sense. And if you fast forward that to the startup world, does that still stand, but maybe in a different way?
It does.
And in what ways then? So do you have to dress down on purpose? Do you have to be more like what is the startup world going to respect from you, right? If you wear a suit and talk to them, they're not going to listen,
It's not
right?
the clothing per se. It's actually how is your persona. It's actually how you communicate. It's actually, and very importantly, I think some people may not have noticed, is actually the culture you bring with you. The fact that the moral compass that you actually take.
Yeah.
So, like for example, moral compass is that I would never throw any one of my employees under the bus. Even when I was in Hong Kong, even in Singapore, when I joined the corporate, this is something that you will never do. Another thing is that you would be honest. You will not tell them everything, but at least you will be honest. Okay. And you would never the normal stuff like backstab or try to or try to just play politics, etc. You build up your moral compass. You build up what you want yourself to be, right? And I think that was actually and it's very unconscious because at MS you don't realize it until you leave. And then you realize that, and then I think it was only after I finished my stint in AXA, you look back and said, actually I did a good job. I did a very good job at AXA, I believe. And I enjoyed my time there. But then you realize that your time at MES was actually your foundation to set you up for the future. Yeah.
Yeah. So basically what you're saying is you had to unlearn the too much rigid process that's tied to a big government, which is needed for the government. Yes, which is needed, yeah. And then you had, what you carried through was this idea of, your how people perceive you is very important, and how you hold yourself up also feeds into how you believe in yourself.
Your principles.
Your principle. Yeah. And carrying those values forward.
The principles will dictate how you carry yourself. Yeah. The principles. Yeah.
Yeah. And so, I mean, that's a very good exercise on, for a person taking this route or anyone changing, you got to, what should you keep and what you should unlearn. Maybe it depends on your environment, of course. And I think that lesson that your mentor taught you is massively pivotal as a leader to learn, because when things don't work out and there's conflict, it's you as a leader or manager should not necessarily just blame that person. I mean, one, you hired that person, right? That's your fault. But secondly, it's probably because maybe they're suited for a different role. Could be within the same company, or maybe it's just a different industry or different thing. Doesn't mean they're a bad person, period.
Exactly,
right? They're just going to be successful somewhere else, which is, I think, important in that, the leadership and management growth to kind of understand that, and learning how to communicate that effectively is very critical.
Yeah. Spot on, yeah.
Right? Okay, so what qualifies you to say you were good at AXA? Because you went through a management training program for about 2+ years, which did a lot of rotations. I'm guessing, and then after that you jumped into another role. But then 9 months you left.
I think So what qualified me to say that I think first of all is usually the feedback from your managers. So that was where I had the seven female managers as well, and I also had in Hong Kong. I also had very strong male mentors and bosses. What I did well was that actually it's actually quite self-evident. You do well in your program, you get the acknowledgement, you get promoted, and you also build the friendships and the trust, and people trust you, and people want to give you work to do, as compared to the others. So
were those signals important for personal? I mean, I think career growth. I think in the corporate setting, those are important signals, right? If you're looking specifically in the corporate structure, decline. But in terms of personal growth and becoming overall better, were those signals good?
Of course they were, because it would tell you, and this is what I appreciate about corporate. There's a structure to everything. They will tell you.
I like structure.
I like structure. I won't deny it. They will tell you that, okay, this is the area that you did well. These are the areas that you could improve on. That is the more formal feedback. And then, of course, are people willing to have lunch with you? Are people willing to tell you things that they wouldn't otherwise tell you? And because you're a management trainee, right? Are people willing to teach you things? Right. And the fact that people were willing to teach me, and the fact that people were willing to have lunch with me, the fact that I was actually invited for quite a number of meetings, sometimes to very nice places, it's an indication that the management trusts you and respects you and appreciates you.
In a sense, it's you're talking about soft skills, interpersonal skills, relationship building, networking, all these kind of things, which apply also in a startup world.
Yes, but it's actually more like the acknowledgement that the soft skills comes because people acknowledge your effort at work, right? Because this is work, right? And this is a corporate, it's a dog-eat-dog world. People won't really spend time to have lunch with you too often if they don't see value in hanging out with you.
It's okay. We gotta be careful, because people might mistake this and equate that hard work equals success in corporate, but that's not necessarily true, right? Because there's something more about you in what you were doing that people saw the value beyond the hard work. Because you could work 9 to 5 and you could still rise, or you could work 12 hours a day and go nowhere in corporate, right? Yeah. So it's a little bit more than that.
It's a lot
right?
more than that. I think people don't. I think people don't really appreciate hard work. Hard work. I don't advocate hard work. Because usually I've seen people work really hard and then are stuck where they are. You need to work effectively, and you need to know that you can't work by yourself. You need to work with the right people. You need to have even if you're not a manager, you still need to have the right team around you to get things done, and you need to have the soft skills to get somebody to tell you where to go, and you need to have somebody to stand up for you when people scream in your face, which did happen as well. So.
Well, see, there's a lot of caveats there. You're making it sound like you're breezing through corporate, but I think you're doing things that other people just don't naturally do. You're better for the system, perhaps, which is where I probably failed, right? There's no way I would pass an interview at Goldman Sachs or anything like this. I would never get hired for that kind of stuff. So I think you had something. There's more to it, I'd say. And I think, if you read in between the lines in your story, you could kind of probably piece it together of that, that's why you were what you say successful for AXA, right? And then what? I'm assuming you left to join HSBC which is your very long stint, right?
6 years there, HSBC.
Yeah, 6 years. Why did you leave?
I leave? I think it was more for family reasons, and I wanted to be closer to home. I think my grandmother was like getting a bit older then. I wanted to spend more time with her, and I think it was a really good decision. So I didn't think I would come back to Singapore after the MES, but I think.
Oh, really? Did you love Hong Kong?
I loved Hong Kong. It was so cool. I loved it
really?
so much. Yeah.
So I mean, given like the value for like money, like for space you get and for how much you pay, it's a lot less, right? And then, what did you love about it? Like
the freedom.
I thought Singapore would be better quality of life.
The freedom.
The food.
The freedom.
Oh, the freedom. The freedom. Okay.
The fact that you can get out of your house, the stimulus you get in Hong Kong. You have
energy,
the vibe, the people. I love the people in Hong Kong.
The racetracks.
The proximity to Shenzhen, and people there were so much more engaging. I think if you just I think people in Hong Kong are in two different camps. Either they like you and they really want to hang out with you and they teach you all the secrets of Hong Kong, or they just treat you like a foreigner. So it's like how do you actually break into the first camp, right?
And did you break in?
I believe I did. So, but I wouldn't know, right?
And, well, it's because, but to be fair, you grew up speaking in Cantonese.
I learned it.
Did you have to learn?
I learned it in Hong Kong. Yeah,
you learned it there. Okay, so you can speak with a Honky accent.
I love it. Yeah. So HSBC was a really great transition to continue my Hong Kong journey, because HSBC stands for Hong Kong Shanghai Banking Corporation. So
their presence is very big in Hong Kong.
So I think before I go to HSBC, right, learning the language, I'm sure people have told you this, just making the effort to learn the local language made a big difference to me breaking into the first camp. Yeah. The fact that people realize that you're making an effort to learn the local language, and no matter how bad it is, they will accept you more. Yeah.
Actually, I think you were you were working in Singapore for the time, because I did an internship in HSBC Vietnam.
Oh, okay.
And then the guy I worked for eventually moved to HSBC Malaysia to be the managing director there. So I mean, I think it's about the time that you joined. He was in Malaysia, but I think.
I see. That's cool.
Yeah. It's a small world.
With the six, that's cool. And I think HSBC Singapore was cool. Was I think the first cornerstone. If the first cornerstone was the MES, then the second cornerstone was HSBC. I think HSBC is a fantastic place to work. Fantastic. I mean, the benefits are great.
Why is that?
People are genuinely good. And HSBC has this culture to hire, in general, at least in Singapore, balanced people. I had the best colleagues. I had really good bosses, right? And I had a very good work-life balance. I mean, not very good, but I had a very good balance when I didn't have to work. I did have to work long hours though. So.
Yeah. So what exactly were you doing for HSBC?
So I went in as an implementation person. Then I was promoted very quickly I was promoted to strategy, and then.
Wait, what does that mean? Implementation
means when somebody comes up with a product. So I was in the insurance line. So when somebody comes up with an idea for insurance product, you have to implement it. So you have to work with all the different departments, from underwriting, operations, tech, product, actuarial, as well as maybe the distribution side to roll out a product, right? And then make sure it was pretty cool. Then I went into strategy to figure out where should we be going. And then my final stint was product manager. I was promoted to product manager, which is actually in the sort of financial world, the banking world. It's actually more like acknowledgement. You have become like a specialist in a way. You're like a guru for product. Okay. Yeah. You get to order people around there.
So you were doing insurance for a long time, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So me and my friend Kevin Hung, we started an insurance podcast. We're definitely gonna have you on as a guest soon, probably.
Yeah.
Because he has some insurance tech ambitions, and I guess his family business is probably one of the larger agencies in Malaysia. And I feel like I'm sure you have a lot of opinions with this, but InsurTech in Malaysia and Asia in general there's a long way to go in terms of innovation, a lot of opportunities still. And what we've seen in the past is just barely scratching the surface. So. Yeah. Is there anything from your experience then you could say from AXA to HSBC that the insurance world needs to be looking at right now?
I think the I think the playground for insurance is limited because there's so many like strings attached. I mean, there's so many like boundaries and so many restrictions here and there because of the current environment that we're in, be it regulation, be it interest rates, be it people. I think insurance world, the channels would be the one that they should be looking at. How do you innovate the channels?
Distribution.
And I'm not talking about direct channels. I'm talking about distribution channels with real people. Because I think that's
which I have a lot of discussions about this. So to me, that's like, because right now it's person to person agency.
Yeah.
That's the main model of distribution,
Yeah.
and the user journey is just disgusting. It's horrible. Like, and people are not educated about what it is, and I think the overall feeling of what people feel about insurance is just negative. And I think the fixing the user journey and looking at where those channels sit along that journey I think there's plenty of room to give people a positive association to insurance, probably.
Yeah.
Is something along this lines?
Those lines, because I think now the person to person interaction could be improved. I think case in point is that take a look at FWD. I think they're trying hard to reinvent one of the biggest Hong Kong insurer. I think they're actually funded by Lee Ka-sing. They're trying to go IPO as well. So they have actually managed to successfully change the image of insurance. The advertisement is pretty cool, and I think they're trying to use tech to change things. So that would be a player that I would actually look out. I would look out for.
Okay, we'll save that to the different podcast. Yeah. So let's jump into your latest, and I kind of set you up for this, right? You've been talking about so many great things about corporate, but somehow you decided to leave it. So what's going on here? If corporate's so good, and you had a lot of value from it, why did you end up joining a startup, Momentum Works?
I think it's a very good question. I think it flows very nicely. I think the challenge was that corporate is good until a certain level. Maybe at least for me. Okay, I'm just speaking from my own personal experience. I think corporate, the flip side is that there's the rules, there's the bureaucracy. You have to, I think there's bureaucracy, and I think there's also the fact that you need to follow a certain culture. Right. Like, for example, HSBC's culture is to be quite risk adverse, and after a while, you get a bit tired. Cynical, tired. The amount of the amount of paperwork that you have to do there is actually tremendous, right? Again, HSBC or the big banks are just like the regulators. They must do it because for a place with more than, I think, if I'm not mistaken, 60,000 employees, I could be wrong, don't quote me, 60,000 employees across the world, how do you have a system that could conform to it, right? But the word in itself, it's you have to conform to that culture in order to thrive in that culture. Right. Yeah. And after a while, you will do well. They do treat you very well. You start to question, is this all that I want to do? Some people may say yes. Some people may say that my goal in life is to have a family. My goal in life is to knock off work 9 to 5. My goal is to have stability. Yeah, then it's a great place for you. But I was quite curious. I wanted to see what else is out there. I wanted to figure out, aside from banking, insurance, what else is out there. So I told myself, if I don't try it now, when will I actually get this opportunity, right? And so it was more of a pull factor. And I think that time Momentum Works was just starting out. And I think, to be very honest, I think Momentum Works couldn't really pay very well. When I said, I don't need to be paid, I have savings, right? That's the thing. The corporate world gives you savings. They pay you so well, you can actually have savings. Yeah. So then I said, why not give it a try? I mean, the thing is that I did a check, and I realized that in any case, if it doesn't work out for a startup, the skills that you have learned at the startup is so transferable back to corporate, and maybe that will actually give you a boost in your corporate career. Because everybody has been there for so long, why, if you go out and come back, you may actually even be in a better position.
I think your case is special because you were able, I think because you had a track record in corporate.
Yeah.
I feel, traditionally speaking, for most other countries around the world, if you only had done startups, people don't understand what you do in a corporate world. Like you, especially if you come in as a generalist, right?
Yeah, that's true.
Except maybe in Asia, where this, like, it's been really popular lately to be in startups, and corporates are trying to do innovation. There might be kind of space for you to jump to a corporate, but I think traditionally speaking, like, I'm not too sure. Like, do you think that that's true, where a startup person can just jump into corporate, like, and it applies?
Okay, so to answer your question, right, Alex, I think nowadays the corporate world is, okay, this is what I think after spending so many years in corporate. Corporates are so well run, so well oiled that even if you were to come in with no experience, there is actually a very clear SOP and training program that can get you up to speed very fast. So, and I think I'm very confident that no matter which corporate you go into, you can pick up the skills needed, right? The challenge is that whether or not you can conform or would you be able to accept the culture.
Well, I'm not even talking about that. I think I have no doubt I probably could find some level of success or performance that's beneficial for corporate. I don't even think I could get my foot in the door because I don't like what I would communicate in an interview. I just don't think it would like, I don't know. Do you think like, I don't know, corporate managers are now woke? They are like, they need more corporate, like a startup DNA, and they're willing to talk to someone like me? Or because like to me, I don't think I would be able to get into a corporate.
I think definitely. And I think Alex, my sense is that this is very interesting. And I know we're running a bit late on time, but I just want to play flashback. This is basically me at the beginning of the interview where you were asking me, do I want to be a CEO? And I had this hesitation, and now it's you. Now this is actually coming back to you, where you have this.
So this has always been true. This has always been true for me from day one. Since I've left school, right? It's just I've always been on the other track. That's why.
Exactly.
But it's also by talking to a lot of people and speaking into the corporate world, and also even applying to bigger, more structured companies. Still start like maybe somewhat corporate, but also in tech. Or I just don't do well with those interviews. It just doesn't seem to work.
My sense is that actually the interviews are usually asked to suss out whether or not you fit the culture more than anything else. So yes. Yeah. I think the interviews are less so on your skills, but rather would this person be able to work with me? Would this person be able to work with my guys? And I think that's the first point. The second point to your question is that yes, a lot of corporates that I know are now looking for people from the startup environment because I think they also know that they need new blood and they need new experience. And you can either get a fresh graduate that has nothing, or you want to get somebody with a bit more color in a different angle. Okay. So I am seeing this trend happening.
Yeah. So I guess your point stands. What you were saying earlier was that, even if you jump to startup, it might have some value because you could always go back to corporate if needed and give you a different perspective.
Yes, yeah.
And I mean, I guess maybe I do have some inherent biases and mental things blocking me to think that. But I think the main core point stems culture-wise, it's just not going to work out probably.
I think it's changing. So I would say that in the next few years, the culture will change, but the thing that will not change would be the mission and the vision of a big corporate. And the question to ask yourself is, do I want to do that? So again is I love the fact that everything is coming full circle. It's the fact that you are asking me, would you want to be a CEO, right? And I think the question would be, do I want to be in the limelight? And maybe if the answer is no, it's really the fact that I don't feel comfortable. And the same for you, right? If you had the chance to go to corporate, would you want to be in that kind of a situation where you had to be in that environment? And if the answer is no, it does not mean that you can't contribute. It's just that maybe you need to find another different way to contribute.
Well, for me, because I mean, like I don't know in the context of what you're saying, but like I'm just going to say off the top of my head, it's more about that point in my life. If like, for example, it's something I'm willing to sacrifice enough where I'm willing to make that trade. But if I don't have to sacrifice anything and I could live in how I want to live, right, then I'm not going to put those constrictions on me, right? So, I mean, it's the example is like when I got burned on one of the bootstrap ventures I was doing. I worked for more than a year without salary and burned a lot of my savings. So like I couldn't afford to. So I found a nice little in between where I was building a venture for an angel investor, was able to get paid, right? So, but if there was no other in between, then, of course I'd be willing to make that trade if push came to shove. So, but I guess for me, I don't have to make that compromise yet. I don't have responsibilities beyond myself and my partner, no children yet or anything like this. So I'm not
cornered into that position. But if it did, it's like you said, I would be comfortable with that to do that. How does that fit into what we're talking about? I don't know. What do you think?
I think it's coming full circle. I think it fits.
So it's the same.
It's the same. It's the same. We're coming full circle. So we started off from a different side of the river, let's say, and then now we're sort of like meeting each other halfway, and I think it's the same. This is how the world is actually.
Yes.
It's like,
I let you take control. Oh no, you spun the tables on me. Fair enough.
Oh.
So Yorlin, you got to watch out for Yorlin. She's very good that way. Okay, let's talk about your role as CEO then, right? So I'm going to recommend you a great resources that I had read maybe more than 5, 6, 7 years ago in terms of learning about how to build different structures and different roles within startups. The book is called Riding Shotgun.
Riding Shotgun, okay.
Right. So riding shotgun is like you're riding in the passenger seat with the, back in the day in the carriage, a shotgun, but you're not the guy driving the horse, right? So it's an allusion towards the guy riding the horse is the CEO, but the guy riding shotgun next to him is the COO,
yes.
right? And then it gives you the book goes to explain different. So they did an analysis on all the top 5 Fortune 500 companies and the different roles of COOs. Right, and they found different types of personas and use cases for COOs, and I was kind of I think it would be a good book for you to read to kind of for your own context as COO.
Interesting.
And one of the roles is what we talked about earlier. Yeah. A COO role has been crafted with the expressed intention of taking over as CEO one day, but it has to be purposeful, right? Yeah. Another one is the COO who is a mentor, who is there just to help through a rough transition period. It's like how you said, there's wartime CEO and there's peacetime CEO, right? It's the same thing for CEOs, right? Yeah. So there's a type of role for CEO where there's an older guy to help a younger founder who's the CEO, and then he will never take over, but he'll just eventually retire. I mean, they have many other types of formats of COOs, which I think would be interesting to explore, right? So I'm kind of thinking, what do you see yourself? What is your profile as CEO? What is the role that you crafted at Momentum Works, and how does that work with the company, the culture, and the senior management structure?
Okay, that's a loaded question. So I believe that my role as a COO right now is more of peacetime CEO, but I think it could go to wartime CEO anytime, right? COO.
What does that mean?
Meaning that I think as a startup, we are always on the lookout for the threats. We're on the lookout. We need to grow, but we also need to be on the lookout for anything that will actually be a threat to my company's existence, right? So now is the time to prepare. Now is the time to groom the talents, the time to build up our resources. When it comes to the time to fight, then I think we need to be in a position to be strong mentally and physically in terms to be able to run very fast and to overtake the competitors. So I think 2020 has been a very interesting year for us to really build up our resources. I think we're in a very good place right now. We have lots of insights. We have lots of networks that have been built, and actually the kind of like Zoom or this kind of like internet connection is actually helping us a lot. And I want to see what next year will bring. I want to see how we can actually take Momentum Works to the next level. Right. I want to see Momentum Works grow to the vision that is actually what I want to do. So I will actually look out for your book. I really want to read it.
Yeah. So I mean, it's not a loaded question. It's more to question what is your current. So one of the points that the book points out is that when people have not deeply defined this well enough, what happens is friction happens. So one CEO thought he was the CEO to be groomed, but that CEO was never going to let go of that position, and that's when things break apart. Senior leadership breaks apart, and different expectations. So it's more of a thinking of structuring exercise, like of what has been your current role, and then how do you see that role evolving over time? It could be one thing now, it could change later, but I think it's an ongoing conversation that I think founders and CEOs and COOs need to have over time, because things change, like you said, things could shift for you where, things are being maintained, you're supporting, but then the next day you need to be in a more active role and take maybe on more responsibilities that the CEO may have, so he can focus on other things too, right? Not necessarily taking over though, right? But the question is, have you defined that, and then how does that look over time, right?
I think that's why I think in this sense, right, is actually a blessing that I think I work very well with the CEO. I think we get along very well. So I think the transition or wherever we're going actually will be much easier compared to other companies. I'm very confident of that. Right? Where are we going next? What does it look like right now?
Specifically,
as a CEO perspectively, how does it look like right now? I think right now everybody is working towards the same goal. The goal may change, so we're putting in place. We're trying out a new process called the OKR to try to move things along.
Object key results.
Yes. On that note, I think I would recommend everyone to read the book Measures What Matters by John Doerr. This one. That I'm reading right now, actually. But this one is
very good.
So
the ticks the Google. I mean, I think Google popularized this, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
And he's taking that method. Can you roughly speak what is an OKR and then?
I think an OKR is mainly what,
especially versus KPI.
Versus KPI, right? So OKR is actually what we have been talking about. That we need to have a company-wide objective. Like for example, we're going to make Momentum Works famous in Southeast Asia, right? That's objective. And then the key results will be something that we review every quarter. We need to have some kind of like results with that the team can run towards too, with a number. Like for example, I need to get 10 articles out. I need to talk to Alex 5 times, for example. So that it's something achievable. And that is something that corporates have it. But maybe corporates mainly, I think they use KPIs. We want to use this OKR, which could, the key results may change every quarter, but the objectives do not change.
But it sounds like you almost defined the KPI, right? I think you got to be careful, right? I think an OKR does have a metric assigned to it, but it's something that could be built over time.
Yes, correct.
Whereas a KPI, I still haven't figured that out completely, right? So like a KPI is more of a tangible number that's very specific to.
OKR is also it has to be tangible as well. But but the OKR, I think the good thing about it is that it's actually bottoms up. So after knowing the objective of what we want to do, I let the team decide what should be the key results to achieve this objective. So I think this is.
And I think the more important thing is you have to be able to measure that gradual increase over time each quarter, right? Whereas a KPI, I think, is more direct. Like it's very black and white. I think it's either like you hit it or you don't, and then I guess what you're doing is you're tying back those metrics to the overall objective.
Okay, right? OKR is either you hit it or you don't as well. But I think KPI is more like set in stone. Like for example, you need to hit 20 sales this quarter, whereas OKR is like aside from 20 sales, there could be a few other results that you need to hit. So I think it complements each other in a way.
Yeah. I mean, I think we'll have to revisit this topic to be more explicit about it. Maybe after you run it, then we can talk about what that is. Right. Cool. So, but that's part of your move is what being more a combination of being more metrics and holistic driven.
Exactly.
It sounds like
the structure in a way.
The structures, you're still continuing to do what you do best, right? You love building out more structures to make it more efficient.
Yes.
And which kind of metrics are you looking at in terms of what? More volume, lower costs, more efficiency, better time? All of it?
I think all of it. And I think also the people part. I think I want my people to be more engaged, more happier, more productive as well.
And what do you prioritize amongst all of those things I just mentioned?
I think the people. I think at the end of the day, the people first. I'm trying. In the past, I think it was more like numbers. This year, I want to focus more on the people because without the people, we can't really, we won't be able to move fast.
Yeah, and also I think it's a function of the types of team you hire and the type of the talent available, right? And by doing so, though, whether you realize it or not, what you're doing is you're taking a more longer term approach where you will reap dividends later on.
Exactly.
Right. Yeah. So you're not going to see a higher impact necessarily in the next few years, but assuming you can make it sticky enough with good culture, then you will be able to move faster when you start doing scaling and doing more projects, getting more clients on board.
In the next few months, not few years. Next few months.
Okay, well there you go, very aggressive. But I don't know, people take time to develop. There's one, like if you hire very young teams, and it sounds like you have a pretty young team, the amount of sheer amount of mentorship and effort you have to put into is very high, and you don't see, I don't know, a few months, man, it's very unless you have a very amazing team where they're all extremely fast learning. So I mean, I guess you know your team better.
I have an amazing team.
But if that's the expectation, I don't doubt you. So I look forward to seeing what the team can do then. Okay, so. What are your thoughts then about being a CEO and starting a family? Can you do this?
I believe I think this is actually the golden question. Are you able to have a family and run a company, right? So I think
leaning in, right?
Yeah. So I think the answer is that I believe I can. I don't know. I really don't know. But just like, I don't know whether I can be CEO. The thing is that just throw me into the deep end and let's try.
Yeah.
Right.
So you're taking more of an approach that it's something you may consider and you're very open to, and you're going to, I guess, there's no point to over optimize and just dive in.
No point to overthink it. Just do it.
Yeah, correct. Just do it.
Just do it.
And then I think more or less like you're not in a position where you're compromised or starving or something's really bad, right? So I think on the whole, it probably would work.
Either way will work out. So the thing is that finally don't put all your eggs in one basket. So just try different things and eventually you will find your life's purpose. Your life's purpose is not really just to run a company. Your life's purpose is not just to be a mother. Your life's purpose is actually to leave a legacy in one way or another, right? So that's what I want to do. So taking care of my team is also part of my legacy as well. Making sure they have they maybe be the mentor that was who told me when I first started my job. That it could be that.
Okay, so I have last two questions then. Why don't you tell us about your most painful learning and some of your biggest mess ups?
My most painful learnings.
It hurt, like something got destroyed, right? Because I think with growth and personal growth, you learn the most when there's probably some amount of pain involved. You don't have to, but more often than not, if it's very painful, if you could reflect back and come back with an open mind, you probably have a lot of room for growth.
I think the painful learning was actually when I first started. Again, it's with relating to people. I think when I was like what you said, right? You grow into the role of a leader, right? So I think when I first started the company, or 1 or 2 years into the company, there was a time where maybe I was too aggressive. Maybe my expectation was too high of the young people.
Trying to prove a lot.
Maybe trying to prove a lot, and maybe trying to push people along too much. And there was a time when there were people that, when they left me, they actually told me that, I'm too harsh. I'm too.
How did they frame it? Were they scared?
Of course, I think people are scared because. Of course, people are.
So it means the truth might have been even uglier.
Yeah, maybe, and I think that's when I realized that actually, and people did leave. Some of them left like on a good note. Some of them did leave on at least they were honest, all right. But I think it was a turning point to realize that maybe I need to work on my. Maybe there is something that they're telling me that I should, take into account. And that's when you realize that not everybody is the same as you. Not everybody, and maybe some people need a bit more or different type of coaching or mentoring. Yeah. Right. And maybe a bit more guidance here and there. So the truth is that I'm still work in progress. I believe that I believe that I'm a better boss because of them. And so for that, I thank them. And it was very painful because
leader, you like boss.
Leader. Okay. Leader. Yes. Okay. So I'm a better leader because I think you are as good as your team. That is a fact, right? And if your team for some reason gives you feedback, they shouldn't be afraid to give you feedback, right? But at the same time, I also need them to work hard. So what's the balance? So that's something I'm still working on. And that's where I think the corporate knowledge hidden for so many years that I thought wasn't very useful is actually emerging. And maybe.
It almost sounds like your priority as COO and what you want to do next is tied to these kind of recent experiences and what you discovered about yourself as a leader.
Yes.
Right. Yeah. So I guess I can kind of agree to that from, say, a business standpoint, an investor standpoint, because if you don't fix the root, you're going to have, I think you can be effective. You're just going to have a higher churn probably. And personally, you're not going to be happy with yourself at the end of the day, maybe.
And you're actually tired. You're more tired because you need to do more things yourself. So you do need to. It's always important to get your team, your people updated. Yeah.
I heard a recent podcast where they're talking about like you don't need to be a good person to be an effective CEO or leader, right? But they were having discussion around conscious leadership, right? I think that's probably a very good topic you should explore. And it talks about, having conversations with people that are above the line or below the line.
Yeah.
If you're below the line, you're victimizing some aspect about
Correct,
it.
yeah.
If this is happening to me, instead of you being above the line and saying, how could this have, how could I have made this better or more of a positive spin on
Exactly,
it, right?
yeah.
So I think, but in that conversation, they were talking about how it could be separated. Conscious leadership was more of a personal thing, but I feel it goes beyond that. I feel being a good person it's just going to be very critical for long-term stickiness, I'd say. I don't know. Would you disagree or disagree?
I believe that being a good person and being a good boss are two different things. Being a good boss does not mean that you're being a good boss means that sometimes you need to.
Well, do you mean manager or leader or both?
Leader,
boss.
manager, yeah.
Well, there's a difference, right? You could be a good manager and be a bad leader. It could be a good leader but a bad manager.
Leader. You're right. Leader. Good
okay.
leader.
So you're talking about leader.
Yeah,
okay.
Managers. Yeah, you're very right. Yeah, leader. So I think being a good leader is different from being a good person. A good leader needs to really sometimes push things through, but in a fair way. I think the key thing is just the structure, the process, the fact that it's transparent to the people that you're leading, so that they have the trust in you.
Okay, so So in that context, you're saying conscious leadership is critical, and then it's not necessarily a separate thing. So it should both be worked at the same time beyond the personal benefit of you feeling better about it. And I think the organization will feel it and probably perform at a higher level. Okay. Then the last question, I guess, what has made you cry at work?
What has made me cry at work? Nothing. Sorry. I'm too hardened for this. No, I don't cry at work. Sorry.
Okay. Felt like you wanted to, but you didn't? Anything?
There was only one time when a young girl chose to give up a career because she didn't believe in herself. That was the only time. I felt bad. Yeah.
Oh, so is it because you related to her, or you saw yourself in her, or why was this so touching?
Not touching, but just sad. It's just that
it's just sad. Oh, like a waste of talent.
That you want to give this away after putting in so much effort. So yeah, that was the only time when I was talking to a friend on this. Aside from that, nothing. So.
Oh, it's just more of a friend personal thing. Okay, so not really tied to work. So you're a tough cookie.
You have to be tough to survive, right, in the startup world. So
yeah. I think it's important to allow yourself space for vulnerability, authenticity too. Right? I think it's very important to connect with the people.
Don't get me wrong. I'm vulnerable. I'm very sensitive. But I think, and sometimes I get sad, angry, happy. I do. It's reflected quite clearly. It's just that I don't cry.
Okay, so that's just more of a personal mechanism. You don't handle it that way. Okay, so last things, and anything you want to plug that we need to know. So if you want to learn about Momentum Works, you can just listen to Jangan's episode. He explains what it is. And we go into detail of the different business models and what the initiatives and projects are. So, but is there anything you personally want to plug for Momentum Works, or anything you...
I think we've covered a lot in this podcast. I'm really happy with the questions you've asked. I think the only thing is that Momentum Works, we do want to be a thought leader. We want to be for startups, investors, corporates. So I'm trying to leave my legacy on Momentum Works in my way. So, yeah. Yeah.
And I guess recently we've been collaborating on some content. So you guys, if anyone listening, could check out the Momentum Works content as well. Where can we find that?
It's on our website. At the
Momentum Works, Momentum.Asia.
Yes.
Yes, Momentum.Asia, and I believe there's YouTube video format. There's the blog,
blogs,
right?
and then there's reports as well, etc. And contact us.
Do you personally use Twitter?
I use TikTok.
My team. You are much younger than me. I do not use TikTok.
My team uses TikTok. Yeah. So.
Okay, so I guess if anyone wants to reach out to you, they could find you on LinkedIn probably, or contact you through
mworks.asia. Yeah.
All right, sounds good. Thank you for your time today.
Thanks, Alex. Thanks, and have a good day. Bye.
Okay, bye.
Hey, listeners, it's Alex again. Thanks for listening to another episode of EO8. As usual, please help share this with friends and family if you enjoyed the content, stories, and lessons. Help rate us on your relevant app store platforms if you learned something. For myself, what did I learn? I think listening back, I realized that everyone is holding on to their own biases. that they may not realize, my own apprehensions regarding corporate life, and Yorlin initially getting caught off guard and thinking about her own role as a leader and a possible future CEO. We assume our models are right on default and sometimes need to take pause and question our assumptions, not as an exercise of right or wrong, but seeing how the world can be beyond what we think, which may help us make better decisions that have fulfilling outcomes. Again, not necessarily a right or wrong context. Life is often a journey of many forking adventures, and being open-minded can take you places you don't expect in a positive way at times. And if not positive, it's an opportunity for learning and growth. Yorlin, having lived in both worlds of corporate and startups, provide unique insights that everyone can take lessons from. In the end, startups and corporates are both on the same coin but on different sides. A massively scaled startup becomes a corporate, and a corporate will always try to innovate like a startup to stay relevant. Lastly, take time to really think about your leadership roles and how they are defined and serve your organization. Hopefully some of these ideas and lessons help. See you guys back here for next week's episode. EOA out.